You good? All right. Hey, friends. Woo-hoo. Who's excited about volunteer training? Just as watch it because this is being recorded, so anything you say can and will be on camera forever and used against you. That's one of the dangers, we talk about now is anything you say when you're preaching, be really careful because it will be logged forever. Let's start with a prayer, shall we? God, thank you for the chance to come together, to be in this space this time, to put everybody on equal footing so that we all have a similar understanding of what you're calling us to do as volunteers at this, your church. And so we come with servant hearts to do this good work that we are expected to do as just members of a church and as members of your kingdom so that your kingdom can come to be known here at Aldersgate in the fullest possible manner. It's in the name of your Son that we pray for your blessings upon our time here. Amen. Who likes New Year's resolutions? I know I need one. Still working on them. Is it too late? It's never too late. Which one would you rather commit to for the next year? Run 1 mile every day or give up eating fast food? See, fast food, right hand. Run 1 mile every day, left hand. The third option, do both. Yeah, that would be yeah. Stop watching TV shows, right hand. Which would you rather give up? Stop watching TV shows or left hand, stop watching movies? What do you think? It's tough, huh? All right, right hand, give up Starbucks or left hand, give up Chick-fil-A? Both of them. Both. Some of you have both hands. You're not Starbucks or Chick-fil-A fans. Oh, man. So Mike would die, I think. If you ever see Mike when you come into the office, he will guarantee he will have a Starbucks drink in his hand. I promise you. Yeah, they know his name. I think they have it ready every morning before he even orders it. Give up playing video games or give up listening to music? Oh, that's a tough one. No? Go to bed an hour earlier each night or wake up an hour early each morning. Who's the go to bed earlies? Who's the rise earlies? Neither of you. Would you rather give up candy or desserts? Or would you rather give up coffee and energy drinks? That's a tough one. I don't know. Would you rather go skydiving or would you rather learn to fly a plane? How many of you are not happening either one of those? Would you rather learn a new language or learn an instrument? That's a good one. What do you think? Learn a new language, right hand. Learn an instrument, left hand. Would you rather take an art class or would you rather take dance lessons? Do I have to wear a leotard? That was my first thought when I said, what do I have to wear in this dance class? Would you rather go on a cruise or go on a road trip? Cruise, right hand. Road trip, left hand. I know most people put both hands up, yeah. How about hike to the top of a mountain or hike to the bottom of the Grand Canyon? Mountain, right hand. Grand Canyon, left hand. I don't really. That's right. As Jan said, I'd rather just ride the mule train to the bottom of the Grand Canyon and back, I guess. Let the mule do all the work. Would you rather watch all the Marvel movies in a week or watch all the Star Wars movies in a week? If anybody says they want to watch all the Star Wars movies, then no. No. There's only 3 Star Wars movies. Okay? Would you rather visit a major city or go camping in the wild? Which might not be very different. Depends on the city you go to, right? Major city? Who wants to visit a major city? Do the culture thing. Who wants to go camping in the wild? Do the nature thing. Isn't it funny how we have different dispositions? So what about, like, if we change some of those New Year's resolutions to spend more time with your family, spend more time at work? Right? Some of those things we know, well, some of you are like, please, I'd rather spend it at work. No. But we have different other resolutions, right? Would you rather spend time working? So let's move it into the church. Would you rather spend time doing worship or being in a small group? That's a good question, isn't it? Would you rather spend more time going to additional worship services? That feeds your soul. Would you rather spend more time going to small groups and being in community relationships? I'm actually curious. Right hand for more worship, left hand for more community. It's interesting. It's kind of, right? But here's where we're going tonight, right? When we think of everything that goes into making those environments possible, whether it's worship or whether it's small groups, whether it's serving, whether it's being in service, receiving service, whatever, doing mission work or helping create an environment in the church, it all happens because of you. Nothing here happens without you. We have staff. We are a staff-led church. We are not a staff-driven church, and there is a big difference for that. We try to make sure that as a church, we don't do everything as a staff. We simply do a lot of orchestrating, right? So that the burden and the responsibility always lies on with the lay people, always comes with the staff, not with people who are the paid professionals, right? We do a lot of organizing, but we don't do the work. The lay people do the work. You do the work. And it's important for us to not get those things confused. And so when we think about a volunteer handbook, we have a staff handbook that we have, but we never have had one for our volunteers. And so as we went through this whole volunteer organization and this initiative, we realized that there were some critical components of how we as a church can't really go forward well without some of these things getting filled in. And this is where, and we're going to talk about her in a second, but I figured we'd start off with another one of those awesome videos done by a volunteer. And this was, again, one of those things like, Tim, this was part of my job from the Leadership Council, was organize some of this stuff. And so I immediately deferred to an expert named Marin. Marin, raise your hand. Yeah. And Marin was like, Tim, you're doing this all wrong. I thought, great, thank you. Tell us how to do it right. And so we created these videos. You remember the series of videos that we did leading up to the volunteer fair? So I figured we would watch another one of the ones that got messed up in here. So this is a good opportunity to watch it again.
You may think that children are just small humans, but that's not quite true. A diverse collection of child subspecies exists roaming freely around the Aldersgate halls. The keen observer of our children's ministry has categorized these subspecies for educational purposes, of course. Now, let's meet these fascinating four creatures. First, the Energizer Bunny, known as Childus hyperactivus, is always in motion. Keep an eye on this one. They never stop running, jumping, dancing. Their boundless energy is both contagious and exhausting. And then there's Rule Follower, or Obeus rulica, who takes rules very seriously. This one is always nearby, ready to tattle. The symbolic relationship has developed between these two. Where you find Energizer Bunny, a rule follower is sure to be following not far behind, keeping things in order. Next, we meet the questioner, or Curioscus askicus, always full of questions. This child's curiosity is boundless. Why is the sky blue? What's for snack today? They're always searching for answers, and no answer is ever enough. This species can wear out even the most patient of adults with their endless quest for knowledge. Finally, we have the wallflower, or Introvicus observicus. This quiet species prefers to sit back and observe from the sidelines, content to watch the action unfold, rather than jump into the fray. They may not say much, but they're always listening and always watching. They're the silent observers of the child's wild kingdom, happy to stay out of the spotlight. Want to witness the children's wild kingdom for yourself? Join us in children's ministry. Reach out to me, Brittany, today to sign up for your very own safari, or on Sunday, or whenever you can. Come see us for yourself. It's fun.
Yay. Yay. So Wendy Kirk, this wonderful Wendy Kirk, has taught us to always look at every hour that somebody gives to the church as gravy. It's all gravy, right? So when somebody comes up with an idea for a video, that's gravy. When somebody follows through and shoots the video for that, it's gravy. When somebody takes, I don't know how many hours, Marin, you dear, sweet, lovely person, to edit and splice and put the soundtrack and all that stuff to, it's gravy, right? So we never want to take the volunteer hours that you put into this your church, right, for granted. We want to recognize it, we want to honor it, and we want to celebrate it. And that's part of what tonight is about. And what we want to do, especially tonight, is create more culture, right? We're always talking about how we create culture and creating culture through putting everybody on the same footing through a volunteer handbook so that we all have the same understanding of what our expectations are, what the church can expect from you, what you expect from the church, what you expect from each other, how we behave and how we treat one another, how we look forward to what it is that we're doing in the grander scheme of things. So to celebrate these two wonderful people, Wendy Kirk came on board, and she knew what we were getting into, but we didn't have an idea when we got into the volunteer initiative. And so we wrote all these volunteer position descriptions. There's a list of them in the back of the handbook. We're going to have a page on the website that goes through all of the volunteer stuff. It's going to be kind of our volunteer hub. And she knew how long that was going to be and how extensive of a process we were talking about. But we, as a church, had never done anything that extensive. And when we went as a staff to Kansas City recently to do our staff development, and we were at Church of the Resurrection, large church. Of course, they have a very formal process. Ours is probably going to be a little less formal, but it's still going to be nonetheless more equally as important when it comes to creating culture and having everybody held to the same standards. Because it's one of the things when you have a church and you have these different kind of cultures, you realize, and this was one of the teachings from that event, was there are multiple cultures in a church, and all of those cultures together create a singular culture for that church. So what we want to do with the volunteer handbook is, the best that we can, create the most uniformity across those different individual cultures so that the whole culture of the church has a specific feel. And that's what this handbook is hopefully going to do for us in some meaningful ways. So that's what we're doing. We're creating culture. And Wendy has talked about her husband, Todd. Todd is our finance chair, and he does a great job. And when, unbeknownst to us, I guess, after Todd had been doing the job, we asked Wendy, gosh, we're so grateful for Todd to doing this. We know, who wants to be finance chair at a church, right? Well, Todd does. Because he knows what he's doing, he feels he's been given a certain set of gifts, and he wants to use his gifts and employ his gifts in service to his church. And for us, sometimes, when it's not our skill set, we think of, wow, what a burden, right? But when it is your skill set and we get people connected in the right places and in meaningful ways, you go, yeah, that's exactly where he needs to be serving, and it fits him to a T. So one of the things in our handbook that we'll get to at one point is when you come to a time in your life of service in a certain area, there's always going to be an opportunity for you to find another opportunity if that one has worn out, because sometimes we get worn out. How many of you have been doing the same volunteer thing for like 20 years? Anybody out there? Penny, put your head down. Okay. Sometimes we get locked in roles, and it's not a bad thing because it's meaningful for us. But sometimes we also know it's time to move on, and we'll talk a little bit more about ways that we can do that. But that's a culture that you have to have, is that volunteers are allowed to shift their responsibilities, and they don't have to stay in something forever. So we're going to work through this handbook. Time to hand out the handbook. Da-da-da. We didn't give it to you because we knew you would all be looking at it beforehand instead of paying attention to our fun videos and stuff. This handbook is kind of the guidelines now for, and it's a work in progress. It's not perfect. It's not written in stone, but it is the foundation for what the culture is that we're trying to create. So we're just going to take time this evening, walk through this handbook. Lydia's going to spend some time talking to us about safe sanctuaries. We'll have some time for question and answer, and then we will have breakout sessions for those of you who are with primarily Sunday morning areas of responsibility, because that's one of the challenges in doing a church like this is we don't really have a time when we get everybody together to do a training on a specific event. And Sunday morning is going to be one that we are trying to get everybody together, because there's so many moving parts to Sunday morning, whereas each of the other big ministries that we have, you can train people individually, but Sunday morning we need a sense of feel. So when we get to the end of this evening, if you're not connected in one of the Sunday morning ministries, we're going to give you a chance to go or to talk to the ministry leader one-on-one. So first thing we're going to do, open first page, vision and statement of purpose. And don't you love it when it cuts off the top of the writing? Vision. I know y'all are tired of hearing the vision, but we're going to do it one more time. Aldersgate United Methodist Church is a multi-generational church built on a foundation of relational paths of discipleship. Our mission is to create mature disciples of Jesus Christ by living into 4 roles: friend, witness, servant, and follower. And this handbook is devoted towards understanding what it means to be that servant in the context of a church. So the way this came about in response to a shortage of volunteerism in internal programs and operations, the Leadership Council set as an objective to create a volunteer program addressing this issue, along with a volunteer fair, volunteer position description, standard operating procedures, and this volunteer handbook to create a culture of volunteerism. And so that's what we're trying to do. So to this end, volunteerism for church programs and operations, it accomplishes 3 goals. Functions as a means of discipleship for ourselves, because service is an integral part of becoming like Jesus. Functions as a means of discipleship for others, because service creates opportunities for others to grow in their faith and knowledge of Jesus Christ. And 3, it creates a basis for developing relationships in the context of church community. So this volunteer handbook creates equal footing for all volunteers across all ministries and sets a standard for how we treat others and how others expect to be treated by us. So we thank you, all of you who are here tonight, and this will be an expectation for everybody that volunteers in any role at Aldersgate, that everybody watches this is being recorded, right? Everybody watches this video and is able to sign essentially on the dotted line. There's nothing controversial in here. It should all be pretty common, basic stuff. This is what you would do if you were in any other kind of environment. You would be expected to, in fact, we got this from Wendy at Huntsville Assistance Program, where she's the executive director. If you go and volunteer at Huntsville Assistance Program, you have to read through their covenant and you have to agree to the principles in the covenant. So this is nothing that should catch us off guard. So if you don't know where you want to serve, you're just coming here tonight because you know that you want to serve. How you get started, there's 3 things really to do. Speak with Lydia or attend one of her monthly Engage sessions on the first Sunday of every month. Lydia, during the 10 o'clock hour, is going to hold an Engage class, which is a way that you can connect through her with opportunities of service inside the church. Visit the volunteer station with cards and areas of service and brief job descriptions. They're outside in the welcome area here, and there's one down in the other welcome area. On the wall, you go up, you have an idea about I want to serve with the youth, you find that, and you pull that out, and you can look through the youth volunteer opportunity cards. Speak with a ministry leader if you are drawn to an area but you don't find anything that seems to be a fit. All right, now on to the statements on non-discrimination policy. Church is committed to inclusivity and prohibits discrimination based on race, gender, age, disability, or other protected characteristics. Volunteers are expected to treat everyone with respect and equality. Violations will, and this is one of the challenges in. Let me talk about that for a moment. When we think of creating culture, when we think of how we respond to things that are different, things that we don't like, people around us who are bullies. Sometimes, yeah, the church has bullies. Can you believe that? Right? They are. And we need to protect everyone who comes to service in the same way that in a workplace environment you would be protected from bullies. So that's all we're trying to do inside the church, is to create that same standard of behavior, right? That's the culture that we're looking to create. And so we have to have a means where we draw a line sometimes in the sand to say, this behavior is accepted, this behavior is not. So violations against non-discrimination policies, right, will result in a review of behavior in person, and if necessary, there's a dismissal. We don't like to talk about firing volunteers, do we? Some of you are like, man, I wish they would fire me. But the truth is, in the church context, it's very difficult for us to talk about because everything that you do is gravy. So we sometimes allow ourselves in the church to tolerate bad behavior because nobody else is going to do the job. Right? How true is that? How many times have you been in a situation in a church where somebody has tolerated bad behavior because nobody else wants to do the job? That's a bad culture, right? In many ways, it would be better for the job not to be done than to have the bad behavior. That's how you create culture. So, not that we're going to go out looking for people, so don't read into this anything. It's not like we wrote that so with somebody in mind, like, oh, okay, good, we finally get to get her. But it is a standard of behavior that when you come and you volunteer, we expect that you will not bully other people, that you will not discriminate, and we expect that you will not be discriminated against. Zero tolerance workplace harassment. Harassment of any kind, including verbal, physical, and emotional, is not tolerated. Volunteers must report incidents to leadership. That's a reporting procedure, which will be promptly investigated and resolved. Retaliation against individuals is strictly prohibited. Violence and weapons policy. Weapons, violence, and threats are strictly prohibited on church property or during events. Volunteers must promote a safe and peaceful environment at all times. Violators will face dismissal and possible legal action. That's just like a standard thing in the workplace. Drug-free workplace, smoking and vaping. Church maintains a drug-free environment, prohibiting drugs and alcohol while serving. Smoking and vaping are not allowed inside the building or during events. We don't have any designated areas. Violations will result in removal from volunteer roles. I don't know if you've ever been on a youth trip where there's that one church that brings the guy that smokes all the time. It is the most obnoxious thing, and nobody ever tells the guy, no, stop it. And so he always sneaks around behind the shed and smokes. You ever had that experience? I've had it a lot because I've been on a lot of youth trips, right? Well, sometimes somebody has to stand up and say, look, and if you're going to come on these trips, this is one of the things that you have to give up in order to be a part of this ministry. Solicitation policy. Volunteers may not use church resources or events for personal, political, or commercial solicitation. Solicitation is permitted only for church-approved activities. Violations may result in reassignment or removal from volunteer duties. Computer and information security. Church-provided computers or devices must only be used for church-related purposes. Volunteers must follow security protocols, including using strong passwords and safeguards against sensitive data breaches. Unauthorized access or misuse results in disciplinary action. So that is one of the things that we do have. There is wireless internet in the building, right? And if somebody's hacker enough, they could probably do some damage, right? So this gives us a means to say, that there's footing for banning people from accessing our digital information. Non-disclosure and confidential information. Volunteers must protect confidential information, including member details, financial records, church operations. This is not just staff, this is also volunteers because, right, we have Grace, who is our paid financial manager, but the church finances all lie in the hands of the lay people. So it's important for us to remember that even on the finance committee and finance team has specific expectations about confidentiality. Disclosure of any without authorization strictly prohibited. Breaches may result in dismissal or legal consequences. Internet use policy. Internet access provided by the church must only be used for ministry-related purposes. Accessing inappropriate or unauthorized sites is prohibited. Internet usage may be monitored to ensure compliance. Email and texting policy. Church-provided email and texting services must be used professionally and for church purposes only. Sending inappropriate or spam messages is prohibited. Sensitive information should only be shared with proper authorization. Severe weather policy. In the event of severe weather, our trustees, awesome as they are, have developed a process for us when we're in the building, but we also want to do our best to notify people before they get on property. Volunteers will be notified of cancellations or delays through email, text, or phone. Safety is a priority. Don't travel if conditions are unsafe. Rescheduling duties will be coordinated by the leadership. Emergency procedures. In case of emergency, volunteers must follow church-provided safety protocols, including evacuation or lockdown plans. Familiarize yourself with emergency exits and procedures during orientation. Report emergencies immediately to the designated safety coordinator. Dress code. Volunteers should dress modestly and appropriately for their roles and events. Clothing should reflect the church's values and the nature of the event. Specific roles may have additional requirements such as safety gear or uniforms. That sounds like a weird one, and oftentimes we don't have to say much about that, but there do come times when it's important for us to remind people of certain standards of presentation, and that it goes for staff and for laity. I mean, staff laity and clergy. I don't know, clergy, we ever been violated on that? Maybe? My pants too short? Code of conduct. Volunteers are expected to demonstrate integrity, kindness, and respect, aligning their behavior with the church's mission. Conflicts should be resolved using biblical principles. Actions that undermine the church's values may result in removal from volunteer roles. Isn't that fun? We sprinted through that. If you have questions or things that we need to talk about personally that you have concerns for of what we've listed, it's not that this is a legally binding document, right? That's not the intent behind this, but it is a culture creating document that helps us all have the same expectation. Again, from all of the non-discrimination to the dress code to all that, so that we have a consistent expectation across the board for all of the volunteer roles that we have. And with that, I will turn over to Lydia for talking about safe sanctuary training.
So Safe Sanctuary is a policy and procedures that the United Methodist Church puts in place for anyone who volunteers with children, adults that are vulnerable under the age of 18. So this is your handout. It's like a check sheet. So if you want to volunteer with someone in this age group, then you must be worshiping here for a minimum of 6 months. You also will need to see the ministry leader or the church office for paperwork. If tonight you have signed up for something and you would like to start and you've been here over 6 months, I do have paperwork with me and you can see me afterwards and I can get you started with that. But you do have a volunteer application. You'll put down references that we will check. It's an online training, and there's your site for that. You have to create an account. There'll be videos you watch. You'll take a quiz at the end of the videos, and then you'll get a certificate. And you can either email it to the office or print it out and bring it. Once you are finished with that and turn that in, then the office will send you, you'll sign a paper giving us permission to background check you. It will say on there when you go on, we're going to check your financial stuff too. We are not. We are not interested in that. We're interested in criminal backgrounds. So we will be checking multi-state criminal backgrounds. Once all that's complete, then the ministry leader will contact you and let you know that you're cleared to work with that age group. Every 3 years, we have to redo that. So I do have that record with me, so if you need to check tonight before you leave to see how you're standing on that, let me know and I can pull your records up and let you know where you stand with that. The conference has changed a little bit and letting us do some in-person training now. Wendy Kirk is working on being our person in-house to do training for that, but she has also had major surgery. So it will be a few months before Wendy is up and going. So if you have trouble with the online, let us know and we'll be glad to help you navigate the online training.
The Safe Sanctuary training is one of the biggest components of actually our sort of like legal work that we have at the church, because that is the not just an expectation from the conference, it's an expectation from our insurance company, right? That you can't be insured if you don't have child protection and endangered persons or at-risk persons training available. So it's not an option, right? And people, when they first came to annual conference, remember this years ago, and said that everybody who comes to work at Camp Sumatanga with children has to do this volunteer training, has to do this safe sanctuary training. And they put age limitations on it. It caused such an uproar in the church because all of a sudden people who had previously been able to volunteer were no longer able to volunteer. And there was nothing that could be done about it. It was very frustrating and it was aggravating and it made people absolutely angry. But it was the reality of the world that we live in when it comes to the sanctuary training and the ramifications of not having these standards in place. Because when those things take place. And in churches, we don't want to think about these things taking place, but they do regularly. They take place often, which is why churches are a great place for predators to hang out. And you should know that, which is why we have these safeguards in place, because churches are trusting, and we always want to think the best of people, and we create environments where predators have a lot of access to vulnerable people. And the church for a long time has kind of turned a blind eye to that and not dealt with that issue. As you know, that's not something that we do anymore. We take it very seriously, and this is one of the ways that we do that is through this Safe Sanctuary training. So I know that not everybody wants to have their background checked. I get that. Not everybody wants to have these kinds of things that they feel are personally. They just want to come serve at their church, and that's understandable, and we certainly appreciate that. That's just not the world that we live in, and that's unfortunate, but that is the truth. Thank you, Lydia. All right, covenant, 10 things to expect. This is 10 things you can expect from the church, and then on the back of that is 10 things that the church can expect from you. As a volunteer at Aldersgate UMC, you have the right to be loved as a fellow brother or sister in Christ. This is that culture thing, right? This is what the point of all of this stuff is. Having all the rules, having all the regulations, all the expectations is to create this kind of covenant that we have together for how we are treated and how we treat others, how we feel when we come to this place. Be loved as a fellow brother or sister in Christ. Be welcomed and included as a part of a team. To find a community and a sense of belonging. To find a volunteer role that fits your spiritual gifts, your service, passion, personal style, spiritual maturity, life experiences, education, and availability. An orderly, respectful, and Christ-centered place to serve. Thorough and effective training, which is probably one of the things we're trying to accomplish tonight, but also in the individual ministries to receive training for what you're doing. Be well informed about the plans for your service time role, the church's priorities and vision of the future, and about events, programs happening around the church. That's a communications piece. Sometimes we're not so great at that. We're trying to get better. Leadership that is caring, prayerful, patient, and thoughtful. To be heard, to have a part in planning, to feel free to make suggestions, and to have respect shown for an honest opinion. Recognition, appreciation, Christian love, and fellowship. A smooth transition into a different service role when that's desired or needed. That's an important one, right? That you have the freedom to say, Tim, I don't want to do this anymore. You need to have that without feeling a sense of guilt, without feeling a sense of guilt or without feeling a sense of shame, that sometimes the thing that you're leaning towards in life changes. It adapts, and you need to be able to adapt with that, and hopefully that adaptation will be able to take place inside Aldersgate continuing. And then 10 things the church can expect from you. I don't think anybody could argue with the 10 things you can expect from the church. Let's see if there's anything to argue about with this one. Serve with joy. Seek opportunities to share with others how you love serving. If you're not happy in your service role, speak to your team leader or a staff member. You notice how that one keeps coming up? It's really important, right? If you're not happy where you're serving, let's find a place of meaningful service. That's what Lydia, we changed Lydia's job description this year, or last year, 2024, to be member engagement, right? Which means when you have a heart to serve, but you don't know what you're supposed to do with it, she's where we want you to start, right? That's not where it's going to end, and she's not going to do all the legwork for you, but she's going to help you think through what it is that you're passionate about, how that connects to the life and ministry of the church. So if you find yourself burned out in one area, don't just give up on the church and walk away, right? That's not what we want people to do. But that is oftentimes what happens when somebody gets burned out and they can't serve with joy anymore. How many of you have been in a point in church where you can no longer serve with joy? Yeah, right? Sometimes you can work through that. Other times you need a change. And that's okay to admit. We want to create a culture where it's okay to say, hey, I'm just not where I was last year when I signed up for this. I need a different, or I'm not either where I was 20 years ago. I need, Penny's smiling because she knows. Seek balance in your life. Service is an outward growth of your relationship with God. We want you to serve others out of the outflow of your cup, not burn out. Radiate enthusiasm. Others will notice when, when they see you serving with gladness. Positive energy, enthusiasm are contagious. We know what it's like to be around the person who's throwing things in the bag because they're stuffing the bags for the kids, right? Nobody wants to be around that. And if you find yourself doing that, mumbling under your breath while you're serving is a key indicator. I probably need a change of pace, change of scenery, right? Cry. Oh, nice. Nice. I did not know that. That's a nice one. Did y'all hear that? Enthusiasm is Christ within us, God in us. Yeah. Very nice. Be Christ-like. Try to see others through the eyes of Jesus, eyes of love. You are Christ's ambassador to every person you interact with in every way that you serve. Be encouraging. Choose words that encourage others. If difficult conversations are necessary, remember, this is always important. Criticism in private, praise in public. Right? We never want to embarrass people. We never want to call people out in front of others. We always want to have those kinds of conversations in private. Sometimes we do have to correct things in the moment. I have to do this with the youth all the time, unfortunately, and call them out in front of their friends. But there's always a time after that when I try to pull that student aside to have a meaningful conversation about why that corrective measure had to happen. As adults, we hopefully will be able to do that more in a better way, that when somebody does something. And this is also like not just, this is how we sort of police each other. This is where culture gets created. When you see an inappropriate behavior among other people who are volunteering, it's okay to address that. It doesn't have to just be done through staff. It needs to be, we appreciate it when staff is aware of what's happening, but it doesn't have to go through staff, because sometimes we as a congregation need to be able to say to one another in love and with intentionality, hey, I heard what you said to that person. That was not okay. And those are behaviors that create culture, meaningful culture for a church. Be appreciative. Make the words thank you the most commonly used words in your vocabulary. We want to be a people of gratitude in all situations. Value the time of others. Be responsive. When your leader sends you an email or text, respond. Communicate with your leader if you're going to be late. I'm going to look down because I know some of you are looking at me. I am not always the most responsive. So this is important for me to remember, that I need to be more responsive as well, because I get a lot of texts and a lot of emails, and sometimes I don't respond as quickly as I should. But in that, what happens when I don't respond quickly is it creates tension for somebody else in their area of service. So it's not, that it's, hey, it's just important to respond quickly. It's important to respond quickly because other people need information that they're trying to get from you, so it creates less stress in the whole system. How many of you have shown up to something and not known what you were supposed to do? Yes, all of us should raise our hand, right? Because in church, we're really bad about that. Hey, come and serve and come and do this thing. You show up and you're not really sure what you're there to do, but you have a willing heart, willing spirit. You get there and you're not really sure, like, okay, well, now that I'm here, nobody's told me exactly what I'm supposed to do. I asked questions to clarify, but nobody got back with me. So then you show up, you're in a stressful mind, right? And that creates stress in the whole system. So the more that we can communicate with each other about where we are, when we're supposed to be somewhere, when we signed up for things, the better. Be loyal. It's perfectly appropriate to share your opinions and feedback with your leader or your staff liaison when you disagree, but it's not appropriate to complain to your team members or members of the congregation. So this is called triangulation, right? It's like, buddy, you know what your wife is? Right? When we do that, we're trying to pull somebody onto our side, create a team, right, against somebody else, rather than going directly to the person and having that conversation with them. That's all that is. Lydia and I went to one of our training sessions at Kansas City that I mentioned the staff went to, and it was about emotional maturity in the workplace, essentially, emotional maturity in church, and how when we feel that need to pull somebody into our side against somebody else, we have to recognize that we are creating an inhospitable environment for somebody else, right? That our emotional need to have somebody on our team to create us against them creates division in the church, and we have to fight against that. It's difficult because we're people, and that's what we do. But it's difficult, and we have to fight against it. Share your knowledge. Teach and mentor other volunteers about your service role. That way, when the Lord leads you into another area of ministry, transitions will go smoothly. One of the things we used to say is be replaceable, right? In a good way, be replaceable. Oftentimes we get like, okay, this is my thing. Only I do this. And we get real protective about that thing. And that's not actually what church is supposed to be about. Church is supposed to be about, oh, you have an affinity for this thing that I also have an affinity for. How do we work together to make it even better together rather than protecting our rights to something? Moving on. This is that one that we've talked about several times. The time may come when you hear a call to another ministry or just to step away for a time, take a sabbatical. Your leader will appreciate, I promise you, the leader of your ministry, whether it's a staff person or another lay person, will appreciate when you come forward and talk about this rather than serving unhappily. I promise you. I promise you. Everybody hears this? Every leader would rather you come forward and talk about you being unhappy serving than to continue serving unhappily. Likewise, be open-minded if a leader comes to you with concerns about your service. That's not like a staff or a pastor. That's just also about each other. And then here's the last thing. And this is what surprised me a little bit when we went to Kansas City, is they actually asked all of their volunteers who are going to be a representative of their church, because that's what happens when we volunteer in any role, in any capacity. I got it. It's just not going away. Yeah, thank you very much. What a lovely act of service. Right? Yes. Lovely act of hospitality. Thank you. Thank you for the offer, the gesture. They actually have, at a church of 20,000 people, an expectation that when you want to be in a role of service, any role of service, that you go through their training, which is what we're doing right now, and that you actually sign and date the time that you went through that training and submit it. Now, this does not commit you, for those of you who are anxious about Safe Sanctuary stuff, this doesn't commit you to Safe Sanctuary, but you have to know that if you don't do Safe Sanctuary stuff, you're not allowed to work with children or vulnerable adults, right? But it does commit you to the principles so that everybody's working from the same foundation. And that's what we're trying to do. That's how you create culture, right? When everybody has the same level of expectations, the same standards of behavior, we can do great things when we're able to hold each other to that specific kind of standard. It doesn't give the staff or other people leverage to be bullies to somebody that they don't like. It doesn't give those of us who don't like somebody leverage to force somebody out of service because we don't like how they serve. It just gives us a means to have meaningful conversations about the kind of culture we're creating and whether or not we're living up to the standards that we want to create as a church. Questions that I'm probably not going to have answers to, but I'd love to field them anyways. And I do have a notepad if there's things that we need to get back to you on. If you have questions about those things, I would love to hear them. You can send me an email. I'll be better about responding. I'll try. I get a lot of emails, and sometimes I just don't make it around. But are there open floor questions? Remember, you're on camera. Everything seems pretty straightforward, right? Again, if you were in any kind of environment, this is what you would do as a volunteer in any actual, nonprofit organization. This would be an expectation. You would go through a training. You would agree to the principles of that. I don't think there's anything that should really be very shocking about anything in here, right? If it is, that's a great opportunity for discipleship. Questions? Hey. The link, are you asking about Safe Sanctuary training? There's a link there? Yeah. Yes, that is for the online training session. And you'll go through, you'll watch. Yeah. And if you have questions about that, talk with Lydia. She has access to the database to know exactly where people are on their Safe Sanctuary training. And even if you are a student, and this is just for some of the students who are here tonight and those who might watch this in the future, the expectation is that in our Safe Sanctuary training, you would be 5 years older than the person that you would be chaperoning, essentially. No minor is ever allowed to be in charge of another minor. That is a bedrock, right? But also you have to be, unless you are an employee of the church, you have to be at minimum 5 years older than the person that you are in charge of or in care of. And even when you're not within that 5 years old, you have to have an adult who is immediately responsible for you. So like when we have a youth intern, that youth intern is not more than 5 years older than the 18-year-olds, but they're under my immediate supervision with them, if that makes sense. So they are an adult chaperoning a minor, not 5 years older, but there is an adult who is chaperoning them, chaperoning them. But still, even though you're not legally allowed to have a minor chaperoning a minor or caring for a minor, any youth that wants to volunteer in the nursery or something with 2 other adults, they would still have to have 2 other adults in that space, has to go through the training as well. So they're not absolved from that just because they're minors. Other questions? Oh, yeah.
Are you sure you're going to answer you?
Thank you for your question.
You don't answer your phone very well. I'm going to ask the password.
Oh my gosh. So, man, I already admitted this. Why are you? Thank you, Angel. Yes. So on the back, the very, you're asking, say it one more time for the process. What is the process? I guess that depends on what the ministry area is.
I'm talking specifically about running the electronic sign outside.
Yeah. That would be, so one of that gets into our question about communications. We're actually trying to work on a communications team for the new year. If some of you are really good at communication stuff, that may be an area of service or an opportunity in the coming year, because we have a lot of ways that we do communication, implicit and explicit. But as Jan brings up, there's things like the sign out front that nobody wants to do, right? It's an electronic sign and it's a clunky thing, and nobody wants to be in charge of it. And so guess what? Nobody is. And because we haven't assigned a staff person to be in charge of that, because none of us want to touch it and be responsible for it. So it just kind of falls to when somebody finally, all the staff goes, nose goes. So that's some things that we got to figure out. We do have gaps, of course. There's always going to be gaps, yeah, that's one of them for sure. Which brings up a good question, though. I think that's a good question. Is when you see a gap in the life of the church, and you recognize that we need to fill something in, that's a great opportunity to come to me or to Lydia or Earl, Belinda, whomever, and just say, hey, is there something we can do about this? Sometimes the answer may be no, right? But sometimes it might be, oh, wow, we weren't aware of this problem. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. Let's see if we can create some kind of solution together.
And also, it reminds us too that this is a living document.
Yeah, thank you. I'll say it in the microphone so it's on. Wendy reminds us these are living documents, right? They change, they morph over time. They shape shift depending on the nature of the church and the circumstances that we're in, especially those job descriptions and the things that are listed there. Any other Q&A? Any other questions? Yeah. We haven't really said whether or not this is going to be a requirement, but we are trying to create it as an expectation.
I'm not
Oh, safe sanctuaries, yeah. If you want to work with minors, that's absolute, yeah. That's a different classification for, but, or elderly, yeah, or special needs, yeah, things like that. So that's a good question, Jason. It's difficult to understand how we hold each other accountable if some people sign it, some people don't, right? That we have a different standard of expectation for commitment to it. And we know that when we write something down and put our name to it, that adds a level of sincerity to it, right? So we are asking people to do that as an expectation, but I don't know that we have talked about whether or not we want to have that as a requirement. Is that an answer?
Yes, we haven't decided.
What area of the church is lacking the most volunteers? Yeah, in general, it would be probably Children's Sunday morning, because they just require so many hands on deck. And so Brittany has done, she's not in here, is she? She's with some students, some kids right now, so some parents can be in here. She has done an excellent job of having Sunday schools rotate in and out from month to month as the hands on deck in the Sunday morning Sunday school classes. It would be great if there were ways to augment that wasn't drawing people out of their discipleship time. So that's one of the probably the most volunteer intensive area is children's Sunday school and Sunday evening probably, yeah. Other questions? Thank y'all very much for being here. Thank you for taking the time seriously. I hope you all enjoyed your mug. Did everybody get a mug? Did we have enough or did we run out? We ran out? Oh, we did not. Okay. Sweet. That means we get one. Yes. They're nice mugs, huh? Lydia, let's thank Lydia for her work as member engagement stuff. And again, even though Wendy Kirk cannot be with us tonight, she has been our backbone for all of this. She really has been amazing, and we give her great thanks and express our gratitude to her and to Todd. Can I close us with a prayer, and then we'll have the last couple instructions. Yeah, Mike?
The sign-up date we had, do people actually sign up to do specific things?
You're for the volunteer fair, the sign. Oh yeah. What are you asking?
That's exactly what I'm asking. Where could we find out who signed up for like what ushers?
Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah. We have all of that in a database,
Okay.
and Lydia will be glad to get you that information for everybody that signed up for those different areas.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah, we had the volunteer fair. People came in. They read through the cards. They read through the job descriptions, the volunteer position descriptions, and signed up for things. And yeah, if you are in a ministry area and you help coordinate volunteers and you haven't heard from me or Lydia about people who have signed up to work in the area that you work in or you're responsible for, please let us know because we can get those to you ASAP. Thanks, Mike. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Volunteer position, is there a leader of the
As far as who to go to for each one of those areas? Is that what you mean? Yeah, you're right. We did not put the leader who you should talk to for each one of these. So most of them are going to be natural, like children, go to Brittany. But if you have any questions, guess who's going to be your go-to person? Lydia! If you have a question, hey, I see this thing in the volunteer position description. Who do I talk to about this? What's the answer? I'm not making friends with her right now. Yeah, if you want to, excuse me, if you want to sign that agreement page, go ahead and follow through with that. We'd be glad to just collect those in the back. Is there a back? just put them on the table. You can rip out that page if you want to keep the whole document with you. This document will be available online once we get that web page up and running. So you'll have reference to it if you need it. Yeah, people train.
If you sign up as a volunteers that payer, you don't have to do it again on this one. No. You're already signed up?
Yes, yeah. Well, but this is, if you're asking about the agreement.
No, she went to volunteer fair. She does not need to fill this out.
No. Yeah. No, that's just a list of volunteer position descriptions to look at if you're curious about something. Yeah. All right. I'm going to say a prayer, and then we're going to break into the Sunday. Like I said, we're going to focus on Sunday morning stuff. This is going to be heavily reliant on Belinda and Earl for hospitality stuff. That's really what we're trying to focus on because that is one of the things where we just can't get everybody together at one time because there's so many areas. And so to kind of talk, hey, how is it when somebody, from the moment that somebody drives onto our lot, how do we take care of them as a guest in our house, right, in God's house, that we get to steward? So from parking lot greeters to greeters at the doors to making coffee to helping people find and connect to Sunday school classes, all that stuff. So ushers and greeters and things like that. That's going to be the primary focus. If you're not involved in that, but you still have some questions, Lydia and I will be around. Nikki's here for music. Raise your hand, Nikki. Or if you have a question about another area of service, just come and talk to us. We'd be glad to have conversations with you. Mike, if you are curious about, because this is a little different than the hospitality stuff, but it has a lot to do with Sunday morning, is if you want to learn how to just do the opening and closing procedures for the church. Mike needs help with that. The trustees usually fill in for him, but it would be great for the trustees to not have that expectation. Mike have a protege for all of the things that go into making the church run on. Like, don't you love air conditioning? Do you know how much Mike fusses with the air conditioning and the heater every Sunday morning before we ever show up? Like, I mean, yep. So it's Christmas time. How many of you have seen the dad in A Christmas Story? You know what I'm talking about? When he's fighting with the heater? That's Mike. That's Mike. Feels like that a lot. So Matt and others work with sound. That's another thing to be trained on for Sunday morning if you want to talk with Matt about interest in learning sound stuff. Again, we have this volunteer position descriptions available. Those are in those cards that are in the welcome centers. So let me pray, and then we will close ourselves out. God, thank you for this time, for this space, for everybody who's gathered here, for those who are not, that as we commit ourselves to this standard of behavior and standard of loving one another and being loved by one another, that it's honoring you to do this. We know that it is, and so we thank you that you have given us a place in your kingdom to serve meaningfully. And we pray that because we commit ourselves and because we are stewards of our time, stewards of your space and of your gifts to us, that people will come to know Christ in new and meaningful ways because we've just given some of ourselves to your service. It's in the name of your Son that we pray these things. Amen. All right, thank you. If you are interested in hospitality ministries, hang out. Otherwise, talk to some of the others of us if you have questions. Thank you.